And if you are speaking about larger terrorist groups like Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah, well, they can afford themselves to get some very good equipment, either from directly from Iran, or if you think about the Houthis in Yemen, they have their own capabilities of using these Iranian-made or Iranian-inspired, let's say, armed UAV or suicide UAVs. The new line of Iranian vehicles are relatively sophisticated. They are quite like Western equipment, like we are used to see in other countries. Just recently, they unveiled the Gaza. They named it Gaza during Operation Guardian of the Walls. So it is a very large UAV, armed, equipped with satellite communication, more than 24 hours endurance, a lot of new items inside. So yes, there is a very sophisticated drone industry and UAV industry in Iran, let alone other countries. And just recently we saw some evidence of Iranian export of UAVs, not only to Yemen or to other proxies in the region, but also to Venezuela, which is, I think, quite close to the continental United States. And we saw another pop-up of Iranian-made drone system, including the ground equipment in Ethiopia. So it is a global issue.
Thank you very much for that, Tal. And Sarit, Tal just mentioned Venezuela, and I know that was an important part in the report that you just released. You reported there that Iranian-made UAVs have traveled far beyond the Middle East and are now, as Tal just mentioned, are in America's backyard, 2,000 kilometers from Miami. What's the significance of that development?
So first, Venezuela is part of what we call Shiite axis. So it's funny, but not all members of Shiite axis are actually Shiite, but they are probably part of this axis that is led by Iran and allied with Iran. The specific UAVs that were provided to Venezuela from, the name is Muajir 6. And by the way, Venezuela itself also, again, manufactures UAVs based on these Iranian UAVs, as quite impressive capabilities with regard to accuracy and flying to far distances of around 2,000 kilometers, which is actually the distance to Miami. Can fly around 12 hours. And though due to Venezuela leadership, it's all about security mission, it is clear that Venezuela and Iran can decide upon using these drones in order to put pressure on the United States, to influence the United States policy in the Middle East and maybe elsewhere. And even in some more extreme scenarios, to revenge and to retaliate United States for operations that will be attributed to United States elsewhere. So of course it has meanings that you have, that somebody which is an ally with Iran has these kind of UAVs that close to United States.
Right. And do you think that this trend will continue? We'll see the proliferation of these Iranian, specifically these Iranian-made systems beyond the borders of the Middle East, that this will no longer just be a regional issue?
I believe so. Why not? First, it's a great income, which the Iranians need. And second, it creates military alliances. So why not?
But I think what Iran is starting to do, which you're seeing now a lot of, is export this technology, especially these kamikaze drones, all around the region. And when we start to think of the kamikaze drones, I think we need to think, you know, this is not exactly a drone in the traditional sense. This is kind of like a cruise missile, or what's called a loitering munition, or what have you. It's a tube. It has a munition in it. It can fly to a destination. You pre-program it. You're not necessarily in the loop while it's going there. So you can, it's good, you can send it to proxies, because the proxies don't have sophisticated operators to fly the things. I think what we're seeing Iran try to do now is get to the next generation of that. So we saw the attack on the ship in the Gulf of Oman, which was a kamikaze drone, apparently, several of them. One of them hit the bridge of the ship. Now, what that would tell me is it's one thing to pre-program a coordinate somewhere. It's quite another to hit a moving object. It means you probably have to be able to have real-time video and everything that's you're actually operating it. So I think that what we're seeing now is Iran trying to take all this to the next level and put all these pieces together. And I kind of said that it's like an evolutionary tree. They had a whole lot of things that they were building. If you see their military parades, it's an endless plethora, menagerie of all these drones. It's a lot different, by the way, than if you look at like the United States military or something, where they rely on just several major platforms like Predator or Reaper or whatever. Iranians built a huge number of them.
Another example is from September 2019, and here I'm going outside of Israel and I'm going to Saudi Arabia, and you mentioned that incident before of, we don't know exactly how many, maybe Tal or Seth have better information, but we understand it was quite a few. Okay, we don't know the exact number of drones that were launched probably from Iran towards Saudi Arabia, towards the oil infrastructures of Saudi Arabia, along with also some cruise missiles and rockets. And this attack that was, though the Houthis took responsibility, claimed responsibility, we understand it happened from Iran, actually created so much damage that it damaged the capability of Saudi Arabia to produce oil for a few days. And this, of course, affect the markets all over the world. Last October, a different incident in a different area, which is in Iraq, on one of the border crossings between Iraq and Syria, where the Americans are present on the Syrian side of the border. And again, it was a drone attack against the American base. Iranians wanted to send a message to the Americans saying that any attack against Iranian assets in Syria, whether coming from Israelis or from Americans, will be met or could be met with retaliation also against Americans. Nobody got hurt. The Americans probably had previous information and they evacuated their soldiers beforehand. But again, it reflects the capability of Iran to send messages by the drones, by suicidal drones.